for a few minutes today. I guess today, first of all, is the day on which they start to give some of the healthcare workers a vaccine against COVID. And I think that's a big deal. I know that there's so much controversy about it. There's so many people say this is all not real and, whatever. But this morning even I had a call telling me of a preacher that we know whose son just passed away. And so there is a lot of suffering. And I know that in common with a lot of other things, this can be politicized. But I pray we don't get to be so skeptical, There's plenty to be skeptical about, but there are some things where human suffering is involved or whatever that I think we just need to be careful how we react. I know that we've got many people in our circle of friends who are either suffering from COVID or have loved ones who have, or have loved ones passed away. And my prayers are with them. And my prayers are with each one of them. And I'm praying and hoping and believing that you all are being careful and safe, and that this remarkable thing that nobody in our class has actually, no current members have been affected really, or at least we heard that one had, but she recovered very quickly. So that's all good news. Today's, I guess, a big news also, because today's I guess the Electoral College is meeting. I don't still quite understand all of that. I understand the process, but I'm not entirely sure of the reason for all of that, because I heard today, I read somewhere, I can't think, but where it was, that had President Trump got 0.7% more votes across all of the states, then he would have won the Electoral College vote, but would still have lost the popular vote. So I don't understand all of that. I do know, though, and I wanted to comment for a few minutes on the news. Many of you know that, I don't know, I guess it's a lot of years ago, but a lot of years ago I used to work for the BBC. And at the BBC, we used to pride ourselves on just being purveyors of news, not commentators, just presenting the news. But the reality is today, what you are presented as the news really depends on who's doing the presentation. You can tune to one channel and you see these headlines, and you tune to another channel and it's as like that story didn't even happen. I remember many years ago at the BBC, we were thinking about the days that are now here, where the broadcaster could watch or know what you were watching. So, for example, if I've got some friends who are really into Westerns, and so if you watched Western movies on your TV, the idea that we were talking about, wouldn't it be something if we could change what the BBC presented to you to present you the things that we know you're interested in? So, for example, if my friend always watched Westerns, then we wouldn't we wouldn't ever present any programs that weren't Westerns, so that the news would be tailored to him. And in fact, that's what's happened now. It's not happened individually, in that what you watch on Fox is the same as what I watch on Fox, but really, if you don't like Fox's news, then turn to CNN or turn to MSNBC and you get an entirely different story. But the fact is that our news outlets in America are so polarized. And you've got left-wing news outlets and right-wing news outlets. But there's one thing that is pretty clear, and that is that none of those secular news outlets are pro-Christian. If you want to present a Christian message, then you have to start your own channel. And sadly, there isn't really a Christian news channel, not that's available on TV the whole time. Why? because it takes millions and millions and millions of dollars. But so if you have a news story and you as an individual or a church want to get that news story out, how do you do it? You don't have the millions of dollars. So what do? You use social media. You go to Facebook, you go to Twitter, you go to these other outlets. But here's the problem with that. Those outlets are not neutral either. So you think that you're going to be able to tell your story. Well, the reality is you're not allowed to tell your story. Because I read this morning, somebody recapped it by saying that what they are in essence telling us is you'll report our version of the news or you'll not report at all. So recently we had experience with some of that in our company. One of our clients posted some stuff, and it was what happened to them. It was factual. They knew it was true, but it had a little tag added by the social media platform saying this information didn't pass fact checks. Well, of course, when we read that, we were incensed, and we started to go back and tell the social media channel that that wasn't true. What we posted was right. Well, guess what? Eventually they backed down, but the only reason that they backed down because lawsuits were threatened and all of the rest of it. And it just made me realize, wow, what a crazy world we're in. We are bombarded with all of these stories, and really, you can't tell which ones are true and which ones aren't. You're going to say, everybody tends to believe the stories we like are true. But the reality is, a bunch of them are, to use the phrase, fake news. So I'm sorry for going on a rant about it, but it just makes me realize that we're in a world where we have to be careful, where we have to realize there is one source of truth. And where is that? That is in the Word of God. When you read something in the Word, you know it's true. You know it happened, or you know that the promise is valid. And once you get out of that, I don't care what you're watching, you have to be careful. So as far as I'm concerned, I frankly don't watch a lot of it anymore. I just don't, because the reality is you can't tell what's true and what isn't. And if you're not careful, you fill your mind with all of that sort of stuff. We are at a season now. We're going into the season where we're celebrating. We're going to be celebrating Christmas. And you talk about fake news. If you just were to read what's going on in the press or what's going on in the world at large, you would never guess that this story was the story of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the Messiah, coming to earth for one reason, and that is to bring us salvation, to bring us redemption. I think that the question has to come up, is that a message that the world wants to hear? And the answer is no. Why? Because the Bible, the Word of God, sets up a different standard of behavior than they want to live by. If you watch TV, if you watch what's going on in the world, you're just going to see a perverted sense, a perverted truth. It's not real. It's not based on any absolute truth. If you and I come along now and we start to say, but this is what the Word of God says, we get accused of being bigots or of being intolerant. Last night, Denise and I were watching a cooking program. Understand, we're watching a cooking program. How do you make whatever it was? And in the middle of that, the media managed to put a little scene where one of the contestants in this cooking program was reacting with his spouse. The only trouble was his spouse was the same sex as he was. And so here we are watching a cooking program, and we see two guys kissing. Well, I'm sorry, that's offensive. That is not what the Word of God teaches us is allowable. But if you and I stand up and we make that statement, then we're accused. And why is that? Because people don't want to be held to a higher standard. They don't want to know what the truth is. And I think there's a real effort to, therefore, stop the message of Christmas. The message of Christmas is that Christ came, that he came to redeem us. He came in love, but he came also to hold us to a higher standard. I think that if the world could, they would keep Christmas, but they'd take the Christ out of Christmas. Now, I have to tell you, there's all sorts of people celebrating all sorts of things. I don't care what you celebrate. Well, my phone's ringing, so I'm just going to put it on hold here. But I don't care what you celebrate. But I tell you what, don't try to stop the celebration of Christmas, because actually the event that Christmas celebrates is the greatest thing that happened in mankind's history. I'll talk tomorrow about what would have happened if Christmas hadn't happened. Well, yeah, obviously we understand some of that, but tomorrow I'm just going to list out some of the things that would have changed had Christmas not occurred. So today, I just want to, I'm sorry, I've been on a bit of a rant here about the media, but it just seems to me that we're in a very dangerous position because we don't know what's true and what's not. But when we feel in that sense of uncertainty, and the one place we can go and we know for absolute certainty that it's true, it's factual, it will forever be, is the Word of God. And one of the things that we are celebrating right now is the birth of Christ. And yes, I can say to a world that's hurting, he came to present the gospel. He came to redeem your souls. He came to bring us hope. He came to bring us love. He came to bring us peace. And yes, in that message, there is a message that says, but we all were sinners. We all have fallen short of the glory of God. But God sent his only begotten Son. What does John 3:16 say? He sent his only begotten Son. Why? Because he loved us. And, I was thinking, if you and I go out and we buy a present for one of our loved ones, and then when that present is presented, it's ignored or it's opened and dismissed as being irrelevant, how would you feel? And how would you feel if that gift had cost you everything you had? Wouldn't that be a terrible position? And yet that is what the world is doing to the message that Christ came to save them. That sacrifice that God made of his only begotten Son was for them. It was not for them. I mean, if I'm not careful, I sound like us and them, but you know what I'm saying. So I do believe that it must hurt the heart of God to know that he gave his only begotten Son, and yet still many people are rejecting. And as I've told you on Sunday, I think many reject because they haven't heard the message. And so we've been talking about Pentecost. And we've been talking about the fact that Pentecost marked a dividing line, or the birth of Christ, or Christ's ministry was a dividing line between the old days and the new days, or as Peter calls them, the last days. We are in the last days. But if we're not careful, we get so focused on the last days and all of the terrible things that we fail to realize that in these very same days, God is equipping us to reap an incredible harvest. So I'm sorry for rattling on today, but I just realized what momentous days we're in and what days of deception we're in. But also, if we believe the Word of God, and I do, what incredible days of revival we are also going to be in. So I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to be a little less wound up or a little less incoherent. But I'm just sharing today, just sharing where I'm at. I hope and pray you're doing well. And so today, as we often do, I just want to pray a prayer of blessing over you, that the Lord will bless you. The Lord will bless you and keep you. The Lord will make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yeah, I love that. And that the Lord will lift up his countenance upon us. You remember the story I've told of how my little kids used to grab my face when they wanted my attention. Well, we don't have to grab the attention of the Lord, because he said he's going to lift up his countenance upon us. He's going to look at us and he's going to give us peace. That's my prayer for you today. The Lord bless you. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.